thank you for joining, Nathan. It's been a pleasure that you accepted this invite, and I'm very grateful that you're actually going to be leading us through this experience. The community rule, maybe you can explain a bit how you came up with the idea, where it comes from, who you are, and what we are about to onboard right now, because this is part of the collaborative journey that Future Law Institute is actually offering to all the attendees, just so that we have some sort of a ground and the basis to really then identify what are the intervention points that we want to recognize, and how can we make the actions, and how can we move forward towards the legal system change that we want to observe in this world. You know a bit about the Future Law Virtual Summit. We did have a couple of conversations before, prior to this workshop. And basically what we are all about is that we definitely want to see how we can negotiate the new normal. And in order to actually know what the new normal is, we have to talk to each other. And this summit is not just for lawyers, meaning that we need to figure out what rules we're going to be having with our community. So as soon as we are onboarding someone, how do we even greet and meet them? That's part of the whole process as well. So here we are. There is a lot of people that are going to be joining us, hopefully. Welcome everybody, and I'll give the floor to you, Nathan.
Okay, thank you so much, Anya. I'm Nathan Schneider. I'm a professor of media studies at the University of Colorado Boulder in the United States. I'm not a lawyer. I have the privilege of not being a lawyer, but getting to work with a lot of really good ones. A lot of my work in recent years has been around cooperative businesses, enabling a new generation of businesses, especially in the tech sector, that are co-owned by their workers and users. And in order to do that, I've had to work with a lot of creative legal minds and friends, and come up with some new strategies around governance and financing. The stuff we're going to explore together today, though, is really venturing into the territory where law does not exist or operate. The kind of extra legal spaces that I think are also spaces where proto-law is being made, where the norms are being established that will result in future legal regimes and strategies and expectations. And often the work that I do in these kinds of spaces is kind of designed to inform policy proposals and this sort of thing. In particular, I'm interested in the ways that that online communities do or don't self-govern. So I'm going to take you through a bit of a rationale of a tool I've built to help communities think about governance and play with governance. I'm going to invite you all to play with the tool. Very much a work in progress. So I'm eager for your feedback and your ideas, and we'll give you some time to experience it, and then we'll have some group work where we'll have you kind of workshop your ideas with each other as well. First, though, I want to introduce kind of the rationale, what I've been up to, what research led me to start trying my, dusting off my 1 year as a computer science major in college to try to do some programming again to build something that might be of use. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I'll bring up the comments here. So if you have any issues hearing me or seeing, or you want to stop and ask a question, please feel free to stop me. Just let me know in the chat, and I'll shut up and turn to you. But where this really comes from is many of us experience online communities as I do, of various kinds. One kind that I engage with a lot is open source software. The communities that build all kinds of tools that we use every day, whether we know it or not. And I'm kind of a geek in that I like to use Linux operating system and all sorts of open tools that run on that. And so in the process, I'm kind of in communication with a lot of these communities of people building these tools. And one thing that's kind of odd about it that started striking me was that it was how common it is for a figure like the term is often a benevolent dictator. Linus Torvalds, the head of the Linux project, is known as a benevolent dictator for life. That these like bizarrely kind of autocratic governance systems have arisen in the context of our supposedly kind of radically democratic online communities. And I experienced this firsthand, in particular, in my role moderating a large email list of people involved in cooperative projects online. And these are people who are kind of obsessed with democracy. And it struck me that we just didn't have the tools. When we ran into a problem, with, as any online community does, with problematic, participants who annoy everybody and cause everyone to have to pay attention to them over and over. And, you just need something to deal with these people. I realized I didn't know whether I had authority to act. The system I was relying on, a very standard, email list platform, was offered no tools for democratic governance. And in the meantime, I was in ongoing conversation, of course, with my mother, who was in the process then of being elected president of her neighborhood garden club, right? So this is a garden club founded back in the 60s. And I was just blown away about how my mother's garden club was so much more sophisticated in its governance processes than any online community I'd ever been part of, because it had inherited these kind of regimes of both law and norms that go back generations. And so there were elections, there were bylaws, there were term limits, there was a whole set of processes in place that I just so much wished I had in my as administrator of an online group. So there are exceptions to this in the kind of world of online communities. Wikipedia is a famous example. This is a community that has the community of Wikipedia contributors has a very sophisticated governance system with lots of different roles and elections and a kind of meritocracy / democracy. But if you've ever tried to run the underlying software of Wikipedia, you realize that set it up in your own space. You'll find that none of the governance structures that are part of Wikipedia are in that underlying media wiki toolset. You have to build all of that on top of it painstakingly and step by step. There's no plug and play association structure like what probably happened with the founding of my mother's garden club, where they brought in, they probably just adopted the bylaws of the garden club and then in the next neighborhood down the road. And so as a result, we see over and over as online communities get built, they're relying on this kind of what I have come to call implicit feudalism of the tools that were given, of the platforms that we use. We have moderators, admins, these benevolent dictators. These are especially the admins and mods. These are terms that are very common in platforms like Facebook groups and Reddit and email lists. And so we're kind of expected to have this autocratic or oligarchic governance structure. So I got curious about this and spent a summer doing historical research and tracing this pattern back to the earliest online communities, particularly the bulletin board services that actually preceded the modern internet as we know it. And these were online communities that were run often off of a server in somebody's house. So you have these incredible kind of memories and documents from this period where people are describing how they can hear based on the sound of the hard drive while they're sleeping on the other side of their bedroom, they can hear what's going on in their online community. There's this incredible intimacy. They talk about the experience as being like having friends over to your house. And of course, the one admin who had the server in their house could pull the plug at any time. So they had a kind of absolute power over the hardware itself, and that extended to power over the community. And as the software developed, it developed toward creating more and more means of power for those what they were called at the time sysops, system operators. And it's striking, you know, the powers that we tend to see among these admins and mods are kind of the very powers that some of our kind of liberal democracies are designed to prevent power holders from having. I mean, the main things that an online community you know, admin or mod can do is censor people and exile people. You know, the two kind of like radically anti-democratic forms of sanction are precisely the forms of sanction available in these communities. So not only do we have a very kind of feudal power structure, but also a very kind of totalitarian means of enforcement. A little strange for the, you know, the kind of radical democracy of the internet. And meanwhile, in a lot of these communities, there is this claim that they are radically open, you know, that they are democratic and horizontal. But I think we see this kind of recapitulation of what the feminist activist and scholar Jo Freeman noticed in the early 70s, this tyranny of structurelessness, where when we claim that that our communities don't have structure, in fact, we are kind of covering over what is often an even more pernicious hierarchy, one that is, you know, harder to escape. So what do we do about this? Say we're concerned about the fact that these online communities are so persistently, so almost universally autocratic in the structure and in the expected behavior of the power holders. Well, there's some interesting things to point to about how ways in which rules and law have been imported into online communities and into peer production and this sort of thing. One example that I think is really powerful that I used as a response to our issues on this large email list is the contributor covenant. This is a project developed by an open source developer and activist named Corlin Ada Emke, who is now doing really interesting work on licensing a project called Ethical Source. But she developed this simple code of conduct for open source projects. And at first, it's just a couple pages long. This is just the the main document. Here's the length of the document. It's pretty short. At first, when she proposed the idea of a code of conduct, all sorts of open source communities kind of recoiled against this. We don't need this, we're fine, we can handle our own issues. But more and more groups realized that, first of all, they were driving away, especially non-male, non-kind of homogenous participants by abusive practices in their communities. And that if they just popped this covenant into their GitHub repository, that they had a means of dealing with these issues. And that's what I discovered running this email list is as soon as we just agreed, I essentially quasi-unilaterally agreed to import the contributor covenant, suddenly we had tools and users could actually use the covenant to carry out grievance processes with people who were causing issues. And so it just struck me how powerful it was to be able to just have a simple kind of template of a rule set. And it enabled us to have a set of processes that we could really run on. Now, the contributor covenant still doesn't address the basic questions of who holds power to enforce the thing. And also it still relies on those, kind of dictatorial mechanisms of censorship and exclusion. That there are no other kinds of forms of repair offered here. Another example, which I imagine many of you are familiar with, is Creative Commons. This is on the intellectual property side. This is a project of legal scholar Lawrence Lessig that has become an incredibly widespread piece of internet infrastructure, a set of legal documents with a very accessible front end. Just a few choices, and you've decided on a intellectual property regime. And it allows, especially creators, people who are creating content and publishing it, to decide how they want to license their creations and to access, pretty decent, enforceable, legal documents without having any legal, legal background, and just be able to import that into their community. I also think of much more ancient examples of the kinds of rules that communities have been able to adopt and import. I've spent some time in monasteries and have come to appreciate the rule of Saint Benedict and other monastic rules. These are inheritances of many generations. These are ancient documents that are still the basis of communities that exist today, to the point where, in a monastery following the rule of Saint Benedict, often they're reading the rule to each other aloud during lunchtime, and so the rule is a kind of holy document, while also being an incredibly durable and dynamic and creative platform on which to build communities. And it's this is not a legal document. It's essentially a cultural document, but it has enabled communities to exist in continuity in a way that, for instance, the communes without such kind of clear and shared rule sets often fall apart within a few years. The same practices have been much more durable when they've been operating on the basis of a rule like this. And this is a legacy of how powerful a fairly simple set of rules can be for a community to adopt. So enter the little tool I've been building. It's called Community Rule, kind of drawing on that language of rule from the monastic tradition. The idea here is to develop something that could approach at some point something like the ease of use that you see with the contributor covenant and Creative Commons, with also an opportunity for flexibility and creativity. To me, one of the great kind of underutilized opportunities of our online communities, of their incredible profusion, there's so many of them, is that we have an opportunity to do creativity with governance that we've never really had before, and to innovate, to iterate, and to share. And so that's another side of the balance. I want to try to figure out how we can make it easy to import rules, but also easy to change them, to adapt to them, to customize them, and share them. That turns out to be a really challenging balance to reach. But this is what my team and I are trying to explore. The way we're thinking about this too is, we're not trying to provide the kind of comprehensive, governance from top to bottom. We're really identifying that in online communities, there's a stack. There's a set of tools that sit on top of each other, a set of practices that sit on top of each other. Some of those have been really well developed. Licensing in open source communities, for instance, is really well developed. There's a high degree of knowledge among open source contributors and participants about intellectual property and licensing. there's a lot of norms around collaboration and co-creation. How do we get a bunch of people to contribute stuff together? You know, pop up a Google Doc. What kind of implicit etiquette do we have in those kinds of environments? There's a lot of, you know, tons of open source projects are able to collate contributions from hundreds or thousands of contributors, and we know how to do this. We even know how to do create culture and create policies, codes of conduct now. That contributor covenant is now adopted by thousands and thousands of open source projects, including the Linux Foundation, some of the other really large ones. But the piece that, you know, we also have really good platforms for doing collaboration, you know, whether it's GitHub or Facebook groups or whatever it is. It's really powerful stuff. What we're really missing, what I think is like just not been touched, is that layer around governance. You know, how, who holds authority, and how do they make rules, and what holds them accountable? Those questions have just been ignored to a tremendous degree. And so that's really the layer that this project is focused on. We've been working with two different kinds of communities. You know, I mentioned open source quite a bit. That's one kind of community that we've been collaborating with. And for instance, the Contributor Covenant project itself has actually adopted in its GitHub repository a rule based on, that was created, as you can see here, created with community rule. So they actually used our tool to adopt their own rule. And in the new ethical source effort that Coraline is leading now, we've actually now included as one of the expectations that open source projects should have is clear governance guidelines, which has not been an expectation so far. It's never been kind of culturally necessary for projects to say who's in control, how are decisions made. We're also working with mutual aid groups that have formed up around COVID-19. So we've been doing workshops, particularly in the United States, with these, you know, many groups that have formed around the country, and many of them, you know, are not legally incorporated in any way. They are informal networks, but they are accumulating resources, and they have to figure out how to make decisions about those resources. And so we've been doing workshops with them around how to start thinking about making decisions and using this this tool to do that. I'll say a bit more about that stuff, further stuff later. But I want to take you on a little tour of some of the things that this tool is designed to do. So the main kind of entry point is this create tool, which currently has two options. I'm, you know, in the process of eventually synthesizing them, and I'd actually love your feedback about how best to do that. But you know, you can start by putting your the community's name. So we'll call it Future Law Workshop, and Nathan
Collaborative.
in charge. Sorry, is there an issue?
No, I was just thinking we could say Future Law Collaborative. What do you think?
Okay, great.
Or is it just we're doing something?
We're just playing.
Oh, just playing. Okay, workshop.
No,
fine.
but I'm glad to. I want to make sure to get it right. So you have the option either to write your rule in words using this rule writer tool, where you have a set of, basically just a set of questions that you can answer. You don't need to answer every one, but a bunch of things that groups might want to think about. And so with some initial testing, that was the initial version of it. With some initial testing, some feedback we got was all those questions felt overwhelming, and we want a more kind of visual experience. So that's where the rule builder tool comes in. They sit alongside each other. They both work together. You can do one or the other or both at this point. And here you can start inserting the modules that that we've built up as a kind of informal database of different kind of key things that a project might have, a community might want to have, and then you can describe them. So I currently hold sole decision-making authority over this process. But hey, actually, I have a term limit where you know, and then I can add a description. My time will end at, you know, I will lose all power at the end of the session. So I'll just replace one person with Nathan. Okay, so, and then now I've popped those things together. I can preview it, and I see a kind of cleaner representation of the little rule I've created with kind of nested descriptions of what I've done. Then I can go back and keep customizing if I like. I can also export a Markdown document that's designed to be used for a GitHub or GitLab or something repository, so easy for software developers to import. And I can also publish to the library, which is right here. This is a library of rules that users have created. You can see, you know, for instance, it begins with with rules that are just text-based, and then here's where once we got the rule builder tool going, we have a few more here. And so these include, you know, for instance, I did a little summary of the Haitian Constitution of 1801 right here, and then we have people who've you know, used this for some of their coronavirus mutual aid groups, open source communities, all these sorts of things. And you can, and already, for instance, we've seen, for instance, this temporary benevolent dictator rule, which was posted by a user, has been influential in that actually that contributor covenant author used this to edit their own rules. So this is an example of, you know, precisely what I have really been hoping for this tool, that it will enable people to share insights and innovations and learn from each other's and build on them. So they took the traditional benevolent dictator idea of an open source project and said, okay, there's an endpoint. You know, there's a point at which we stop being a dictator. Anya says it's not, is it necessary to publish these rules? It's not necessary to publish them. You can't at this point save them without publishing them, other than downloading the Markdown version. So right now you can only save it to the site if you publish it, and there aren't user accounts or anything like that. So I'm going to put the we have a question here about sending files to our to emails. If our organizers can respond to that, I'm just putting the link in the chat for now. So I want to start, or more relevantly, I want to shut up and turn to you all and give you a chance to play around with this a little bit. We're going to do two exercises. The first one, I'd like to invite you to map out a rule, to use this tool to describe a community that you're part of, particularly a community that doesn't have legal documents governing it yet. So whether that's, you know, a club or a group of friends or a family grouping or a group of, you know, kind of informal group at work, whatever it is, some group that doesn't have explicit rules made for it, and try to try to capture that rule using this tool. So you can again do it with the builder. You use this little button to bring the modules up, Or you could do it with the writer tool where you just answer questions. I'm curious which one feels, you know, the most initially inviting for you. But I want to give you about, if we can, about 10 minutes to give that a shot. Are there any questions before we get into that? Any things that that folks want to bring up, or anything that you feel like you need to know before you give this a shot?
So Nathan, so each of us will be using the tool independently, like
Yes.
thinking about a community that we're in, not collectively together. What are we doing? Okay.
Exactly.
Just checking.
Exactly.
Okay. Got
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So this first exercise will be kind of solo quiet time.
All right. One question with regard to how do we govern this call? Maybe it's going to be helpful as well. Do we want to go into the breakout rooms and do that in pairs, perhaps?
We could. I was thinking of doing breakout rooms for just for the second exercise.
All right. Okay. Okay.
Where we'll workshop our rules a little bit, and maybe start just individually because we all are part of different communities.
So we go into the https communityrule.info.
Yeah, /create. I just put it in the chat. So
oh, perfect.
And that'll take you straight to the create tool. So here you're building from scratch. Okay, so if there are any questions, feel free to ask in chat. In the meantime, I'll just be quiet until about 20 after, and allow you to give it a shot.
So we have about 10 minutes?
Yeah.
All right. People dig in. Okay.
Let's start coming back together. One thing that Anya mentions is that a lot of the modules need explanation. I should have mentioned the fact that there are explanations here. So actually, if you click on the little icons next to each module, it'll open up a pop-up that that has a page with information. Some of them are filled out sort of well, like this. I have a student researcher working on that. Some are just very brief with a one-sentence summary. Okay, I'd love to invite some of the participants, some of you all, to share things that you created. I also want to hold up Teodoro Catalan's comment that where I live, most people aren't concerned about these issues. They worry more about surviving in the south of Mexico. You know, I can understand that. You know, I'd love to hear more about the comment. At the same time, you know, I think of the south of Mexico as a place that's been a source of innovation and exploration and community governance, you know, through indigenous movements for autonomy and self-determination, where people have found you know, questions about how they self-govern to be crucial to their survival. So I hope these questions aren't totally abstract from some of those more basic questions. Would anybody like to share? And I don't know, can we allow people to share their screens? Would anybody be interested in sharing what they have, what they've been coming up with over the last 10 minutes?
I can share.
Great.
So I'll just quickly share my screen.
Yeah, please.
Let's see. Okay. So what I tried to do is to map the rules of my family. So my direct family, I have two sisters, my mom and my dad. Ayub Khan, that's our last name, it's the family. And so I was just playing around with this. I don't know if this is right or wrong, I don't know, but should I just walk you through my thinking a little bit here?
Yeah, please.
So solidarity, I mean, we care for each other, we're there for each other, and we support one another. And I think I put here rough consensus because there are certain things that, you know, my family would not support me on because, you know, I have my own ideas, I do my own things. Sometimes they think I'm a little bit crazy. But so there has to be a bit of consensus behind certain things for there to be real solidarity. So that's why I put that there. There's definitely rituals in the family. You know, these can be things from, you know, movie nights on Saturday, you know, Sunday brunches, traveling and going to the beach. These I see as all rituals that sort of that help to you know, shape our family as it is. Our values, I found it interesting to even just click and think about this. I've never thought specifically about what, you know, our values actually are, but I do think that our values, they get shaped as we debate, you know, in the same way that in the context of a society or any community, you know, we think about, oh, is technology good or bad or whatever, and there's friendship as well between us. So that's mostly, that's where I kind of, yeah, some of our core values: coziness, open-minded, support. That's kind of where I got to so far. Oh, yes, 1 second, Nathan. Oh.
Okay, great, thank you. That was awesome.
Speaking of autocratic roles, I can control
Yeah,
you.
exactly. No, Zoom has adopted the implicit feudalism of online communities. That's fantastic, and I love you know, my favorite part of what you said, and what I, you know, really hope that this kind of thing can help us do is see things that we hadn't thought about before. You know, when you said, okay, I hadn't really thought about what our values are, but you know, I think it's useful to highlight those. And one thing we've been doing in our exercises with the mutual aid communities is having different members of the community do attempt to do this exercise about the same community at the same time independently, and see some of the differences that emerge. You know, I'd be curious to see what your mother or father would do differently from what you did. Great. I'd love to hear from someone else. Would anybody else like to volunteer and share their rule? Maybe a couple more. If you're willing, maybe say so in the chat. Okay, Anya.
Hey, one more question before, I mean, I can share it as well, but I exported the document and I'm unable to open that document on my computer. What format is that?
Oh, it's a markdown file, .md. It should open in like your, if you're on a Mac, like TextEdit, or if you're on Windows, is it Notepad?
Okay. This one is going to be interesting. So, I mean, not that your family is not interesting, Samira. I actually love how you described your family. It made me thought of what our values are, and yeah, we definitely all listen to my mom because whatever she said, that's the rule. So we have a dictator. But yeah, back to the summit. I kind of went with creating rules for the summit because it would be quite amazing to see that happening as well, almost like an etiquette or some sort of a code of conduct. Every single council, be it a virtual or physical event, actually needs a couple of rules in place because there's always some clashes among the participants, or maybe we might be saying something that does not resonate with our participants, or sometimes, especially in Zoom rooms, it's good to introduce a couple of... So for example, this one, having the possibility to mute everybody at the same time, and maybe using some hand gestures always helps. So let's say this one is to showcase that we all agree, or this one that I need to proceed a bit faster because there is lack of time in place, or showing this. We use that numerous times just so that we can indicate to people without really saying something and taking the space with the audio. So what I was thinking is that we definitely offer the membership, because Future Law Virtual Summit, as much as it is a convening for 5 days, we all are creating this collaborative, which is going to be offering the members the replays to all the videos. It's going to be offering the members the possibility to participate in all the monthly meetings that we have created. And we have started with the NCOPs previously, prior to the summit itself, and we had, for example, 3-hour sprints. So it's a lot in one membership, or it definitely is one of the rules that we are playing. But then again, we would like to see a coalition being formed, because we do want to create some sort of a consensus around what it is that we want to negotiate for, or what it is that we want to stand for. And how do we get there? I hope that it's going to be through pulling the evolution and debate. And I just started to put a lot of things into the place, because I was looking at all this good stuff that was here, that we were presented with, and I saw, okay, code of conduct, we definitely need that. Stochastic choice, we definitely would love to see that too. Lazy consensus, yeah, probably. But then only then I actually realized that if you click on the whole thing, it opens up a new page and it provides you with the whole description. So I kind of held back. And duocracy is also something that we observed here, because a lot of people are actually implementing rules or taking the decisions just because they know what they're doing in the back end, for example. And we kind of have to rely on those people that are taking decisions just by doing exactly that, or taking actions along the way. I'll stop sharing now.
Sorry to leave you hanging. I had to wait to be muted. Okay, so it sounds like we've got Saswati is willing to share. Do you want to go ahead? That's fantastic. I mean, conferences are full of organizing, big things like this are full of informal practices that we don't even stop to notice. So again, it's helpful to hear you describe what's gone into this, and I'm not surprised that the duocracy one really came to the fore there, because often with these kinds of events where there's a million things to do, you just kind of need to, you often need to do something first and ask permission later. Okay, could we unmute Saswati and they can open the screen or share screen?
Yes, hi. Yes. So I basically have logged in from my phone, but I checked this in my laptop. And maybe I think instead of sharing the screen, I would like to narrate it. So I have a family WhatsApp group, which is essentially of cousins and all the kids of my family. And I'm the admin, I'm the sole admin of that group, because I happen to be the eldest person in terms of hierarchy. So I think the 3 most important values that I have chosen is, first is autonomy, which is, like you mentioned, it's more about self-determination among individuals or groups, and it's very important for survival. Second is approval voting, wherein they can approve or deny the approval for each option. Like, for example, if you want to exit the group, like if one of my cousin brothers really gets irritated with one of the forwards that I send, or the videos that I share, they have the choice to exit the group. And this is one of the few options which does not require any approval. I mean, it's more based on choice. And last but not the least is autocracy, wherein one person holds sole decision-making authority over a certain domain. This I'm a bit confused about, because it's very difficult to gauge the mindset of kids who are going to school, they are learning. It's a completely different environment. So I think the last autocracy bit is a bit tricky from my site for my family WhatsApp group, which I feel it's a more structured form of group, because I mean, everybody knows who is eldest and who's the youngest, because it's based on your age, which is like a number. And it's more about experimenting as well with a WhatsApp group, family WhatsApp group. So yeah, I would love to know the take on this. If autocracy makes sense for a family WhatsApp group.
Thank you. Sorry, it took a moment to be unmuted. Thank you so much for sharing that. No, not your fault. It was my fault. I had to write it first. No, I think again, the autocracy is kind of a combination between the nature of a WhatsApp group where it kind of expects an autocracy, and also families which have kind of their natural hierarchies. So it's not surprising that it kind of fell into that slot. But I suspect that there's a rigidness to the hierarchy of an online group, where you're either an administrator or you're not. Whereas families have these kind of subtle feedback loops, and another thing that's really important, I think a challenge that we're trying to figure out here is how to recognize that rules are maybe important, but they shouldn't overshadow norms and culture. And especially when you think about a family, like if your family, if every process in your family were governed by strict rules at every moment, you kind of suffocate the love, right? In a lot of cases, you want the culture and the norms to be the driving force and the rules to sit in the background. And so one of the things that we're working on now in collaboration with a network that's very norm and relationship focused is how to frame what we're doing around rules in a way that puts rules in their place, and allows the natural norms of the group to really come to the front. But if you do need, to go to rules at some point because there is a dispute that the norms and culture aren't able to handle, you have those in place. Thank you so much for sharing that. I also want to respond to Juan Carlos's comment here that what happens if you break the agreements? How can we address accountability and legitimacy? I think that's a great question. That's something that this tool currently does not address. It is just a kind of editor and creator for rules, and it leaves it up to the community to enforce and carry them out. But this is actually part of a broader kind of research community where we're working on a variety of tools, and we're hoping to kind of bring these tools together. So one thing that I was going to share next is some next steps that we're looking at. One is to actually implement this formalized structure based on the work of Elinor Ostrom, the political scientist and researcher of community governance, of creating a kind of formalized grammar. So rather than just having the rules be in plain language, they would become, we're trying to figure out a friendly interface where they could actually be much more formalized, and thus they could be computational. One of our partner projects is called Policy Kit, and it allows people to actually create self-enforcing policies in, for instance, their Slack group or their Reddit, their subreddit, other kinds of Discord works with. So in that way, if we were able to plug what you'd author in Community Rule with the tools of Policy Kit, we could make it so that the rules would be self-enforcing. So if you said you needed a vote to kick somebody out of the group, your platform would actually require a vote in order to kick that person out. You couldn't do it any other way. So we're trying to really create the framework for those kinds of self-enforcing rules in online communities. I'd love to hear one more. I think, or maybe two, we have Lakita and Regina. Maybe is Lakita ready to go? Can you share screen and unmute?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'm not sure how to share my screen. So can I just maybe...
Yeah, you can just describe if you prefer.
Okay, so I looked at a refugee committee that they were working on creating within the church, just specifically to assist with the refugees that have been coming to our country. And so it does not have yet this set structure. And I wondered whether that was really necessary, because I feel that because it's so informal and it's going to include more so parishioners than people with what do you call that, expertise from the outset. It would be that they'd bring people in within the parish and then train them to then deal with the refugees that visit, whether a set structure would not complicate things too much. So I didn't put anything for structure. I did highlight, though, the autonomy that would be needed, obviously, for everyone to operate, because obviously we wouldn't have the same schedules within which to work. I looked at friendship because I think that was also an important aspect of it. It's not so much to create another bureaucratic system for them because they're in a country that's foreign. You want it to be a bit more informal so that they can feel a bit more relaxed and share what they're going through so that we can figure out how to actually help them. So I looked at the mission as well as being important. So it's to assist them in integrating in the society if they choose to stay, or assist them insofar as this may just be a transit point for them and then they'll be moving on. So it's assisting them here while they're here, and then also giving them any further assistance that may help them to get where they want to go. I looked at solidarity, which is obviously also important in understanding what we're doing and why. And then the values. And I also looked at the code of conduct because quite often refugees in particular tend to find themselves in situations where people take advantage of their precarious situations. So we would definitely need, in that regard, some sort of formal structure to deal with this, and in terms of how you interact with them, what you should and should not do, and maybe measures or mechanisms in place where there has been a breach to guide us as to how we should deal with that breach. Then obviously delegation, because ideally, I think the one meeting I was able to attend, the priest of the particular parish is at the top, but obviously we need people underneath and we need to be able to delegate. And I think in delegating, another issue that has to be taken into consideration is involving the youth in the parish, because it's not something that should just be done at the level of priests or members of the clergy, and not just the elderly people in the church, but also getting the youth involved. Evolution was another issue I raised because, as I mentioned earlier, these refugees are here, but their needs are evolving. So their needs when they first arrived are completely different to what they're going to need after several months. So that has to be taken into consideration, and we have to determine how do we now basically adopt or adapt to their needs and meeting it at the stages that they find themselves. And the final point I raised was representation, and I think that is also important, and specifically as it relates to bringing in refugees. So I had attended a webinar where they were speaking about this, and they were saying that even in communities, given the COVID-19 crisis, you should use people within these minority groups to interact with the people within the communities. So you identify a few people, or find out who's interested, and you get them involved and train them so that they can ensure that we are properly assessing their needs and understand what they are looking for. And that was where I got to so far.
Fantastic. I think I used a kind of religious example earlier with the rule of Saint Benedict, and I think there's often need for more of this kind of explicit rulemaking in in religious communities, and in the context that you're talking about in particular, where there is such a both a power imbalance between the people who are offering providing services and the people receiving them, as well as a cultural disconnect, perhaps, where norms that might be expected in one culture and not in another could clash. That I could see a real importance in having like a very clear and short set of, shared agreements made really explicit, so that participants, know what they're, what they are and aren't expected to do, and are and aren't expected to offer. So thank you for that example. I think that's very powerful. We're running short on time, so I hope Regina will forgive me if we just move on to. I want to do one last breakout to get anyone who hasn't had the chance to speak in to the larger group to get to speak to each other. I also want to note, Gayven, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, mentioned a charitable project for the homeless. Again, you have these intrinsic power imbalances, and in those kinds of cases, I think it's especially important to have a kind of a means of holding those in a position of power accountable, and have some rules that that they have before them to govern their their potential abuse of their position of power. So if we could, there's one thing I want to show you quickly, which is that an additional part of this tool that I haven't showcased, which is the templates. So you can, on this far right button, you can go to templates, which are, I think there are 9 basic kind of patterns, structures available that you can also build on. So a lot of groups, what they do, rather than starting from scratch, is to actually pick a template, like we talked about duocracy earlier, this idea that whoever takes the initiative does the work. And here we have an already completed generic template of this, both in the builder and writer form. And a tool that this platform allows is for you to fork. This is a term from open source software, which means edit, make a copy and edit the tool into something new. So you can press fork, and then you can just start editing this template as if it were your own. I want to invite you into groups, to go into groups, to talk to each other about your the things that you created, and to share to explore some of the templates, as well as perhaps guidance, forms of guidance for thinking about how your rules might be improved. So think ahead, just for a few minutes here, about what could be better about the rule that you developed. So I'd like to invite us to go into groups, maybe 3 to 5 or something like that, people each, and let's aim for about 10 minutes, and then we'll do a 5-minute wrap up at the very end, or less than that. But I just want to give you all a chance to talk with each other a bit. Can we go ahead with that?
You will just see a notification come up on your screen to join a particular breakout group.
Okay, excellent. Please jump into your breakout rooms, and how's the group formation going here? I didn't go into mine.
Oh, it's okay. Some people did join. So most of the groups are 3, some are 5.
Okay. That's great.
2 of them are 2.
Okay.
But yeah, most people did join.
Great. And so if we go until about 5 till, does that sound okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Oh, I'm seeing, oh, okay, good. I just saw a group. Saswati was by herself.
Yeah, I was just about to move her.
Great,
I don't know where she's going.
Oh, did she disappear? And then now there's
But
John.
not, yeah, I'm gonna move
and
him
maybe
now.
put there, and then yeah, great. I do this with my students all the time.
Okay, you're
You realize
experienced
when
at
you
it.
put them in groups who is actually present and who is not. John is back in room 10.
Yeah, I'm trying. I've
Okay.
put him there, but he doesn't seem to be moving. He
Maybe
actually
just
has
move-
accepted.
Okay, maybe move Mauricia to another one then. Regina, did you lose your group?
Yeah, I lost my group because we couldn't hear each other. So.
Oh no! Oh no! I wonder why. I'd love to see your rule. Are you able to share it?
I can try it, yes.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah, 1 second, please.
Great.
Are you able to see what I'm looking at?
Yeah, I can see now. Yeah.
And so the community that I am part of is kind of like legal, yeah, so I can't really put the whole name down, but the first name is just Echoes, and it's like we're focusing on a volunteering type of structure, so forth, and the founder and then the volunteer.
Yeah.
And
it's been a while.
And so I don't know if I'm doing this right, but I just put down like a rule building is like the value, is like the value, the mission, the policy register, and so forth. And then the basic rule is like to advocate for each citizens the human rights of a Bella fundamental. It's like to go into other countries, just like to be there for them, because in some countries, I mean, I think you're probably aware of this, there are some great laws that are written, but some people are illiterate in those countries, and they don't understand what the law is on their behalf. So therefore, our community is hoping to like go there and try to advocate for them through volunteer structure and so forth.
Yeah.
And the core value is like value others as well as the people, and respect for self and others, service to others, and communication, because communication is like the biggest rule that a lot of us don't really use a lot. We don't communicate, and that's the thing. That's why I kind of like have the infringement for the citizen and the rule maker in these countries. And participant, how does someone become a participant? Like, it's through volunteering, and if anything was to happen, they would get like a verbal, like to ask to leave, or a written, depending on the situation. And a special rule is a special like role is like they will be able to like receive a big project, and then they'd be the lead of that project with other volunteers and so forth. And the basic that there's the guarantee is that everyone must communicate. That's the biggest thing. Like, many people lack communication, and that's like the core value of this whole is like communication.
Yeah.
And the capacity to decide on policy and how do they do so is the founder must agree or disagree to a policy, and the founder, if it's a he or she, can operate a policy and have it disapproved and approved by the committee. So that was like a fair, it's a fair advantage. It's not just like she make her policy that she approve it, but it won't be fair upon like the whole entire community. They all gotta like agree or disagree upon it. And how the policy is implemented is through words, written and spoken. And like the evaluate its policy is implemented is through check-in bi-weekly. And why are policy and records kept where it's like both digital and hard copy? Because sometimes you have a malfunction with your computer, as we can see right now. Sometimes like it doesn't work as we want it to, so you just keep a hard copy. And how can this rule be modified? It's like through growth, like throughout the year, when things change and things like evolve and so forth, then the rule would be modified to that particular growth that we have just encountered. So yeah.
Nathan, you're on mute.
Thank you. This is great. Thank you so much. I've been taking notes, and it's helpful to see your, how you filled it out and how you had it set up. Thank you. All right, we should bring people back from the breakout rooms. Should we close those down? And we'll just wrap up real quick.
Leslie,
Yes.
could you close the rooms, please? The breakout rooms?
Everyone's on their way back.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you.
It gives them a minute to. All right.
Right.
Welcome back, and it looks like most of you are back. Thank you so much for being part of this. I really appreciate your time, and want to make sure that I would love to hear any feedback from you. My email address is, I'm putting it in the chat right now. Please feel free to be in touch if I can, if you'd like to continue this conversation further. We're very eager. I'm working on this with my lab, a group of really awesome graduate students and folks working with communities. There's a request to repeat the website. I'll put it back in the chat as well. I also want to note that this is part of a broader research project that I mentioned earlier. It's called the Meta Governance Project, where we're seeking in a bunch of different ways to create a kind of governance layer for the internet. And I'm going to just also put the MetaGov website in here, metagov.org. We do a weekly seminar. If you're interested in online governance, we'd love to have you join us. It's a really vibrant conversation each week. Here's the MetaGov website, and then I'll also pop in the Community Rule website as well, in case you missed it before. Thank you so much for being part of this. I'd love to hear any feedback from you by email, and really grateful to the organizers for all the duocratic work that they put into making this event possible. So thank you so much.
It was lovely having you, Nathan. We are going to be following with many different sessions. I'm definitely going to be applying for the newsletter on metagov.org, and we'll send you an email. But thank you so much. I hope you find it enjoyable and very useful for your little communities as well, or big communities, depending on what you were concerned about. I hope that we will soon repeat the session, maybe with a bigger group or maybe with the three of us, who knows, but let's meet again. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah.